What a night last night. America's Got Talent announced that Richard Goodall had won season 19 of the show.
For millions of viewers, Richard Goodall wasn't just another America's Got Talent contestant. He was a moment, a voice, a revelation nobody saw coming. The humble school janitor from Indiana walked onto the AGT stage with shaking hands, a nervous smile, and a story that touched millions before he even sang a single note. But the moment he opened his mouth and delivered "Don't Stop Believin'," the world seemed to stop. In just a few minutes, he transformed from an everyday hero into a global sensation. Fame arrived overnight, but so did questions, rumors, and speculation. People wanted to know who Richard really was, what he had been through, and what he was hiding behind that soft-spoken personality and powerful voice. For months, fans have whispered about what might have happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Why did Richard disappear from social media at times? Why did he look emotional during backstage interviews? Why were there stories about the emotional weight he carried long before stepping onto that stage? Something felt unfinished, something unspoken. And now, after months of silence, Richard Goodall has finally confirmed what everyone suspected all along. His journey wasn't just about talent. It wasn't just about a powerful audition. It was about surviving years of struggle, heartbreak, and personal battles that he kept hidden from the world while he worked quietly in a school hallway. What he has revealed now changes everything: who he was, what he endured, and what that agged moment truly meant to him. For the first time, Richard opens up fully, and the truth is far more emotional, inspiring, and heartbreaking than anyone ever imagined. Before the world knew his name, Richard Goodall lived a life defined by routine, responsibility, and quiet resilience. For more than 2 decades, he worked as a school janitor, sweeping floors, cleaning hallways, and making sure the building was safe and welcoming for the students he cared deeply about. To the kids, he was a friendly presence. To the staff, he was dependable and kind. But behind that gentle smile, Richard carried a lifetime of silent struggles. Few people knew that he had been fighting insecurity, self-doubt, and emotional wounds that stretched back years. Music had always been his refuge, but it was something he kept close to his heart, never imagining that his voice could take him beyond the walls of the school. For Richard, singing wasn't about fame. It was about survival. He grew up believing he wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough, and certainly wasn't talented enough to chase big dreams. Life had taught him to stay small, stay quiet, and stay humble. As the years passed, he buried his passion beneath responsibility, telling himself that dreams were for other people. He watched students grow, graduate, and chase their futures, all while quietly pushing his own hopes further into the shadows. The world saw a simple man with a simple job, but inside, Richard carried a voice yearning to be heard. Everything changed the day he walked onto the America's Got Talent stage. With trembling hands and a heart pounding in his chest, he faced a crowd far larger than anything he had ever imagined. The bright lights, the cameras, the judges, everything felt overwhelming. But when the music started, something inside him shifted. Years of fear, rejection, and self-doubt melted away as he closed his eyes and let his voice rise. The audience erupted, the judges stood in shock, and the world felt the raw, unfiltered emotion in every note he sang. In that moment, Richard wasn't a janitor or a man hiding behind insecurity. He was a star. But what viewers didn't know was the emotional weight that carried him to that stage. Richard revealed that he had spent years battling loneliness, personal loss, and the constant feeling of being overlooked. He had seen people chase dreams he never believed he deserved. He admitted that he almost didn't audition at all, fearing rejection would break him entirely. The courage it took to finally say yes came from a place deeper than anyone realized. It wasn't about showing off his voice, it was about proving to himself that he was worthy of being seen and heard. When the judges praised him and the audience roared with applause, Richard felt a wave of emotion he could barely contain. For the first time in decades, he felt valued not for what he did, but for who he was. Yet even in that powerful moment, he held on to secrets he wasn't ready to share. Secrets about the years before AGT, secrets about the struggles he faced alone, and secrets about why that performance meant far more to him than any viewer could possibly understand. Now, after months of speculation, Richard is finally opening up about those hidden battles, and the truth is even more heartbreaking than anyone expected. After Richard Goodall's audition on America's Got Talent, many assumed his life would instantly transform. They imagined record deals, public appearances, and constant recognition. But the reality behind the cameras was far more complicated. Fame arrived, yes, but alongside it came pressures, anxieties, and expectations that Richard had never faced before. He went from quietly tending a school to being suddenly scrutinized by millions. And the transition wasn't easy. Every appearance, every interview, every public comment felt like a test he had no preparation for. Richard has revealed that the months following his AGT performance were emotionally taxing. The initial euphoria of success quickly gave way to self-doubt and worry. He struggled to reconcile the man he had been, someone who found joy in simple routines and quiet accomplishments, with the sudden image of a national star. The attention, while flattering, often felt overwhelming. Strangers would approach him in public, asking for photos or discussing his performance, and even though he was polite, each encounter reminded him that the world now had expectations of him that he wasn't sure he could meet. Beyond public scrutiny, Richard also faced internal battles. He admitted that for years, he had carried personal insecurities that AGT hadn't erased, they had only amplified them. He worried constantly about letting people down, about being judged for small mistakes, and about whether his voice alone could sustain the attention he had suddenly received. The juxtaposition of his private, humble life with public admiration created an internal tension that left him exhausted and, at times, afraid to step outside. That family and close friends became his emotional anchor. Richard relied on them for support as he navigated the new reality of fame. He confided in them about the stress, the sleepless nights, and the fear of losing himself in the whirlwind of attention. Their encouragement reminded him that while the world might see a performer, the people who truly mattered saw the real Richard, the same kind-hearted man who had always been there for others. Long before the spotlight found him, during this period, Richard made a crucial decision. He would not rush into the trappings of celebrity. He declined offers that felt forced or commercially driven, choosing instead to prioritize authenticity. One particularly telling moment was when he turned down an appearance on a major talk show. While it might have elevated his fame, he felt the timing wasn't right. He needed to regain his emotional balance before committing to public appearances. This choice reflected his deep understanding of himself, his boundaries, and his need to protect the joy he found in music. But Richard didn't step back entirely. He continued to sing in small settings, often for friends, family, and community gatherings. These intimate performances allowed him to reconnect with the pure love of music that had carried him through difficult years. He worked on his craft quietly, experimenting with new techniques and exploring the emotional depth of songs that resonated with him personally. Through this process, Richard discovered that fame wasn't the goal, it was the connection his voice created, the way it could move people, inspire hope, and provide comfort. All of these experiences, the public scrutiny, the private anxiety, and the careful rebuilding of his emotional strength, prepared Richard for the next step in his journey. They set the stage for the revelation he was about to share with the world, the confirmation of what fans had long suspected, that his story was about far more than a single performance. It was about resilience, authenticity, and the courage to face personal struggles while standing in front of millions. Richard Goodall's post-AGT life is a testament to the fact that behind every viral performance lies a human being navigating triumph and struggle, fame and fear, joy and heartbreak. And now, he is finally ready to tell that story. As Richard Goodall continued to navigate life after his AGT performance, he faced a pivotal realization: the world's perception of him didn't match his own understanding of who he was. For months, he wrestled with the pressure of being a viral sensation, constantly questioning whether people appreciated him for his talent, his story, or simply the novelty of his background. This internal struggle created a tension he could neither ignore nor easily resolve. Every interview and public appearance forced him to confront the dichotomy. between Richard the performer and Richard the man behind the microphone. The turning point came unexpectedly. One afternoon, Richard received a message from a former student, someone he had once encouraged to keep pursuing music despite fear and doubt. The message was simple but profoundly moving. The student had been inspired by Richard's AGT performance and credited him with giving hope during a difficult time. That small note sparked a realization in Richard that his impact extended far beyond the stage and beyond fleeting fame. People weren't just cheering for a viral performance, they were responding to his authenticity, his vulnerability, and the genuine emotion he poured into every note. Encouraged by this realization, Richard began accepting invitations to small, local performances. These were intimate events, school assemblies, community centers, charity functions where he could sing without the overwhelming pressure of cameras or massive audiences. For the first time, he felt comfortable in his own voice again, experiencing the joy of connecting directly with people, rather than performing for a distant mass audience. The energy and gratitude of these intimate settings reminded him why he had loved singing in the first place. It was about moving people, not about fame or accolades. Soon, word began to spread quietly. Fans who had followed his journey on AGT sought him out for performances. Letters of support poured in, and social media messages celebrated not just his talent, but his humility. Richard realized that the fame he had briefly experienced wasn't a trap or a distraction. It was a bridge to reach people in meaningful ways. This realization gave him a newfound confidence. He could embrace his talent fully while maintaining the personal boundaries that had always been essential to his well-being. Richard also started to explore creating original music, rather than chasing trends or trying to replicate the moment that made him famous. He focused on telling stories that reflected his life, experiences, and emotions. These songs were personal, heartfelt, and deeply resonant with those who had followed his journey. For the first time, he wasn't performing someone else's story, he was sharing his own, unfiltered and authentic. Through this period of careful growth, Richard confirmed what fans had long suspected. His journey was not defined by a single audition or viral video. It was a story of resilience, authenticity, and perseverance. He revealed that every challenge, every fear, and every moment of doubt had shaped the man standing on stage. The Richard Goodall who had walked into the arena was the same man who quietly sang in school hallways, the same man who had weathered personal struggles with courage and humility. Now, he could embrace his gift fully while remaining true to himself, proving that the greatest triumphs are not always the most visible, they are the ones lived quietly, with honesty and purpose. Richard's post-AGT journey is a reminder to fans everywhere. Talent is just the beginning, but authenticity, resilience, and the courage to face personal struggles are what truly leave a lasting impact. After months of speculation and curiosity, Richard Goodall finally confirmed what fans had long suspected. His journey on America's Got Talent was more than a fleeting moment of fame. It was the culmination of a lifetime of resilience, patience, and emotional strength. In his own words, the experience was both transformative and grounding. He revealed that stepping onto that AGT stage was not just about singing in front of millions. It was about proving to himself that he could rise above fear, self-doubt, and the quiet burdens he had carried for years. Richard explained that for him, the moment of auditioning wasn't simply about showcasing talent. It was about reclaiming a part of himself that had been buried beneath routine, responsibility, and the expectations of a life largely unnoticed by the world. For decades, he had devoted himself to his work, his family, and his community, often placing the needs of others before his own dreams. AGT offered him a rare opportunity to be seen, recognized, and validated not only for his abilities but for the courage it took to finally share his gift publicly. Fans were particularly moved when Richard spoke candidly about the personal struggles he had endured leading up to the show. He admitted that he had battled insecurity and self-doubt for years, always fearing rejection or disappointment. Music had been his sanctuary, a place to express emotions he could not voice elsewhere. By finally performing on such a large stage, Richard faced not only the audience, but also the inner doubts that had quietly shaped his life. That act of courage, he said, was as significant as the standing ovation itself. In confirming the truths behind his story, Richard also reflected on the lessons he had learned since AGT. He emphasized the importance of authenticity, patience, and resilience. Fame, he explained, was not an endpoint, it was a tool, a vehicle through which he could connect with others and inspire them. By staying true to himself and choosing opportunities that aligned with his values, he discovered that the real reward lay not in viral moments or headlines, but in the ability to touch hearts and make a difference. Richard has since used his platform to encourage others to pursue their passions despite fear or uncertainty. He has spoken to students, participated in community events, and lent his voice to causes that resonate with his personal journey. Through these efforts, he demonstrates that the impact of a performer is measured not just in applause, but in the inspiration and hope they ignite in others. For many, Richard's story serves as proof that perseverance and integrity can coexist with talent, and that true courage often lies in quiet determination rather than public spectacle. Finally, Richard's confirmation offers closure for fans who wondered about the man behind the performance. It reassures the public that his life beyond act has continued to be guided by authenticity, humility, and a genuine desire to uplift others. The humble school janitor who once walked into a studio filled with cameras is now seen not just as a talented singer, but as a symbol of resilience, a quiet hero whose story resonates far beyond the television screen. Ultimately, Richard Goodall's journey reminds the world that success is rarely linear, that personal struggles often accompany public triumph, and that true fulfillment comes from embracing who you are, sharing your gifts authentically, and rising above the fears that have long held you back. For fans, his confirmation is more than an answer, it is an inspiration, a reassurance, and a celebration of a life quietly lived, courageously shared, and genuinely impactful.